sports, but we start with the Super Bowl. I visited the Casa de Macloff, which we'll get into a little bit later on. And we watched this game together, us and our significant others. And, of course, I think everybody walking away from that game and everybody who woke up this morning is thinking about how that game ended. 3rd and 8 at the Philadelphia 15-yard line. Kansas City has the football, and the Chiefs call for a pass, obviously. There's 1:54 left on the game clock. Philadelphia had one timeout, and James Bradberry gets called for a defensive hold on Juju Smith-Schuster. Here was Bradberry in the postgame talking about that holding call.
I mean, that's not up for my judgment. I was hoping he would let it go, but of course, he's a ref. It's a big game, and it was a hold, so they called it.
So Bradberry says, "Yeah, I tugged the jersey." Here was Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni.
I'm not. It's not my job to, you'll see me on the sideline. I'm going to argue with different things of calls here and there, but it's not my job to make the call. Those guys got to do that in split second, scenarios. And so, that's what he saw and he called it. And so that's never it. I know it always appears to be that, it's one call that makes it's not what it is, right? It's not what it is. There's so many plays that contribute to the end result of the game. And today they were better than we were.
Rami, again, we were watching the game together. What'd you think of the call?
I was kind of, I don't want to say in shock, but I didn't know how to react at the time, Nick, because it was such a big call in that moment. I mean, it ended the game. Unless what's the kicker's name? Butker for Kansas City. Unless he just shanks one from inside the 20, like that game was over for all intents and purposes right there. And it was because of a call that a referee made, and a questionable one at that. And I didn't know what to make of it then, because you do see the jersey, you know what I mean? You see it when he grabs him, and then you see the hand on the hip on the other side as Juju Smith-Schuster turns upfield. And I looked at it, and I think I still feel this way today. I go, yeah. And it sounded like this is what the defensive back said. Like it is by the book, defensive pass interference or holding, whatever you want to call it. But man, they didn't call one holding penalty all day. You know what I mean? Like, He wasn't wrong. I can't say the referee was wrong, but you just go, man, at that spot in this game, when Nick didn't even call a holding on an offensive or a defensive lineman the entire game, where that goes on like dozens of times over the course of a football game. They were letting them play and looking the other way on a lot of things all night long. And then on that call right there, while it wasn't the wrong call, that's a tough call to make right there.
I thought it was trash
to throw.
I thought it was trash.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's trash.
I thought it was trash. I thought it was trash while I was watching it in real time. I still think it's trash almost 24 hours later, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The way the game is called, like you set the tenor as an officiating crew, and you guys react to that, Rami. Like if I'm a defensive back in this game, if I'm any player in this game, it's rather obvious that they're mostly letting you play. And once that is established, then I know where the line is drawn. And the line was clearly drawn, not on a play like that. And so to go the entire game and not call defensive holding on a defensive player, to go much of this game not calling really anything at all, to call that at that moment, to me, is trash. It really, really kind of deflated my feeling. I thought we were watching a great game.
And part of what made it a great game was, Nick, the flow of the game, and the referees were just letting them play. It wasn't a flag and a stoppage and a review, and you know what I mean? Every 5 minutes, it was high scoring. There were big plays, turnovers that turned into touchdowns, bombs that were 40 yards down the field. Like it had everything, man. And you didn't even notice the referees were there for most of the game, and not in a bad way. Not like there were where you were like, God, how do they not call that? You know what I mean? It was just like a well played, well officiated game.
Right.
Some good commercials, good halftime show, good food. Everybody's having a good time. And then here comes this dude throwing a flag in the middle of the whole thing.
Here he is.
And you know what this is, Nick?
Interrupting my good Sunday. Here he is.
I just thought of this analogy right now. It's like you're watching a baseball game, and all game long, the umpire has a certain strike zone,
right?
And he's calling it the outside edge. He's calling it a strike all day. All day, it's a strike. It's a strike. It's a strike. And then all of a sudden, it's a ball with the bases loaded and a tie game in the bottom of the ninth.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, game's over because you changed your strike zone.
Yep.
It wasn't consistent with the rest of the game, but at the same time, you look at it and you go, he's not wrong. You know what I mean?
Mike Sando,
he's not wrong.
Mike Sando had a column in The Athletic today, and a veteran offensive play caller is how this person was described within this column. And this is what that person said, quote, "You know how many times that route gets run and it is not called? It's a play teams perennially send into the league and never get the call. Guys grab like that all the time." Somebody else, a game management coach, said, quote, "There were 2 restrictions on this play, and neither was enough for a foul, in my opinion. It looks bad because you want competitive plays at the end of the Super Bowl instead of Mahomes kneeling it down to center the ball for the kicker." And that's like, you're sitting there, you're saying, if that call wasn't made, the Eagles have $1:50 on the clock with a timeout. Jalen Hurts has his moment.
You know what? Forget fair and unfair and what would have happened, like with the scoreboard. What were we cheated of as football fans?
Could have been a fantastic finish.
You know what I mean?
Could have been a fantastic finish. Not to mention that the pass was 15 yards beyond Juju Smith-Schuster. There was no chance he was catching that football. And don't tell me, oh, well, he impeded his progress. Not by that much. I've seen a lot more in bigger situations not called. And I just think it's ticky-tack. And for people saying, oh, well, you know, it doesn't really matter if that's a penalty in the first quarter, then it's a penalty in the fourth quarter.
But it wasn't.
Exactly.
Like that's the one issue I will take with it, Nick. Like, I'm not going as far as you are to say it's trash. It's just
trash.
I have a real hard time making that call if I'm that referee in that spot. And I don't think he did it like with any intent. I don't think he was doing it to be like the star of the Super Bowl. And this wasn't to the degree of, remember in 2018, the clear pass interference that wasn't called that for the Saints that led to the challenging of pass interference in 2019, which was gone by 2020. Like, it wasn't that blatant, but that is not how you want that game to end right.
The one thing I look for from any officiating crew in any sport is just to be consistent. And when you have the biggest game of the year, you have to have that kind of consistency. And if it was something that was egregious, I know, again, people say, well, you shouldn't change how you call the game at the end of a game. To me, in that spot, everybody knows the situation. That is the biggest down of the game. If Kansas City, if that's an incomplete pass, again, they kick a field goal, you got $1:50 and a timeout. Jalen Hurts can do, who knows what he can do. And, you know, he has the opportunity. And that's what we want to see as fans. Mm-hmm. And so it does matter to me in that kind of situation. You've got to see something that says no brainer, no doubt, that's a penalty, throw the flag. It's almost got to be borderline egregious, especially given the way the game had been called. You had set the stage that needed to be egregious for the flag to come out. And the fact that it was at best ticky-tack, technicality, whatever. At best, that's what it was. You can't throw the flag at that point. And I thought it robbed us as fans of an opportunity to maybe, who knows, maybe Jalen Hurts goes out there and throws a pick on the first down.
Yeah.
But when we were sitting there watching that game, feeling like this is a great game to take in on a Sunday, this is what we want our Super Bowls to be. Both teams in the 30s, kind of a back and forth, tale of two halves. And then you have it end on that without giving the Eagles much of a chance. It was just a very rough way to end a very good football game.
You brought up those quotes from Mike Sando's article at The Athletic today, which I thought was really good in talking about Patrick Mahomes' legacy, which we're going to talk about later and where he stands now in the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But one point he makes in there that kind of, it makes me see it. I don't want to say from the referee's side, but makes me, I guess, empathetic to the referee's case and his cause, is that there was no way to fix that. You know what I mean? Which is often what bothers me about officiating is there things that fall through the cracks. There's nothing to catch them. You know what I mean?
The only thing would have been if they got together and had one of those.
But what he points out there,
ref huddles.
The reason he says huddling up the referees after that play wouldn't have helped because while the ball is in Patrick Mahomes' hands, that referee is the only one on the field looking at those two guys. When the ball leaves Patrick Mahomes' hands, then other officials on the field, their
Right.
assignment is to turn their eyes and their attention to that side of the field. But at that point, he was the only one looking at that. So he didn't have any help. He didn't have any fallback. The eye in the sky or whatever they're using now to correct plays down on the field, that wasn't able to be used in that situation. It was one guy making a questionable call. This isn't as egregious as other things we've seen in the past.